This is the story of a young man and King Pasenadi of Kosala. It all began at the Jetavana Monastery. One day, King Pasenadi saw a beautiful woman and instantly fell in love. She was married, but the king wanted her. He sent her husband on an impossible errand, hoping he would fail. The husband had to travel 12 miles, gather rare lotus flowers and red earth, and return by evening. If he failed, the king would kill him and take his wife. On his journey, the young man shared his food with a traveler and fed the fish. He prayed to the river spirits for help. The Dragon King, disguised as an old man, brought him the flowers and earth. The king closed the city gates early, but the young man completed his task. He sought refuge at the Jetavana Monastery. That night, haunted by eerie voices, the king realized his wrongdoing. He vowed never to covet another man's wife again. The Buddha once resided at the Jetavana Monastery. He shared a story about Thera Mahakassapa and his pupils. Thera Mahakassapa had 2 young bhikkhus with him. One was respectful and dutiful. The other was disobedient and lazy. The lazy bhikkhu lied to a lay disciple, claiming the Thera was ill. He received food meant for the Thera, but ate it himself. When admonished, the bhikkhu grew angry. He broke pots and set fire to the monastery while the Thera was out. Hearing this, the Buddha said it's better to live alone than with a fool. He recited, "Seek a companion better or equal. If not, go alone. No companionship with a fool." The bhikkhu from Rajagaha attained Sotapatti fruition. There was once a very wealthy man named Ananda in Savatthi. He possessed 80 crores, but was very reluctant to give anything in charity. Ananda had 5 pots of gold buried in his house. He died without revealing their location to his son Mulasiri. Ananda advised his son not to give away anything. He believed that wealth must grow, or it would dwindle away. Ananda was reborn in a village of beggars. The villagers believed his mother was unlucky and drove her out. The boy was extremely ugly and repulsive. When he begged alone, he got nothing. He remembered his past life and went to his old house. The Buddha revealed the boy's identity to Mulasiri. The boy showed where the gold was buried. Mulasiri became a devoted lay disciple of the Buddha. This is the story of Thera Udayi, a pretentious bhikkhu. Thera Udayi often sat on the platform where learned Theras delivered their discourses. He wanted to appear knowledgeable, but in reality, he knew very little about the Dhamma. One day, some visiting bhikkhus mistook him for a learned Thera. They asked him questions about the 5 aggregates. Thera Udayi couldn't answer. The visiting bhikkhus were astonished. They couldn't believe someone living with the Buddha knew so little. The Buddha then spoke a verse. "A fool, even though he is with a wise man all his life, does not understand the Dhamma, just as a ladle does not know the taste of soup." At the end of the discourse, all the visiting bhikkhus attained arahatship. This story reminds us that true understanding comes from genuine learning, not mere association. The Buddha once resided at the Jetavana Monastery. He encountered 30 youths from Paveyyaka. These youths were in a forest, enjoying themselves with a prostitute. She stole their valuable ornaments and fled. While searching for her, they met the Buddha. The Buddha delivered a discourse to them. During this discourse, the youths attained Sotapatti fruition. They decided to join the order of the Buddha. They followed the Buddha to the Jetavana Monastery. There, they strictly observed the austerity practice. Later, during the Anamataga Sutta, they attained arahatship. Other bhikkhus noticed their quick progress. The Buddha explained, "An intelligent man, even with brief association with a wise man, quickly understands the Dhamma, just as the tongue knows the taste of soup." This is the story of Suppabuddha, the leper. He lived during the time of the Buddha. Suppabuddha listened attentively to the Buddha's discourse. He attained Sotapatti fruition while sitting at the back of the crowd. Sakka, king of the Devas, tested Suppabuddha's faith. He offered immense wealth if Suppabuddha denied the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Suppabuddha refused, saying he was rich in faith, morality, and knowledge. Sakka told the Buddha about Suppabuddha's steadfastness. The Buddha said even 1,000 Sakkas couldn't sway Suppabuddha's faith. Suppabuddha was later gored to death by an ogress in the form of a cow. The Buddha explained that Suppabuddha was reborn in the Tavatimsa Deva realm. He was a leper because he had spat on a Pachaka Buddha in a past life. This is the story of a farmer who encountered a life-changing event. One day, thieves stole valuables from a rich man. They divided the loot in a field but left behind a packet of cash. A farmer plowing nearby found the packet. The Buddha, seeing this with his supernormal power, visited the field with Ananda. The Buddha called the packet a poisonous snake. The farmer, curious, found the money and hid it. The owners traced the farmer's footprints and accused him of theft. He was taken to the king, who ordered his execution. The farmer repeated the Buddha's words about the snake. The king, puzzled, brought the farmer to the Buddha. The Buddha explained the morning's events. The king realized the farmer's innocence. The Buddha taught, a wise man should not do anything he would repent. The farmer attained Sotapadhi fruition. Sumana was a florist in Rajagaha. Every morning he supplied jasmine flowers to King Bimbisara. One day, Sumana saw the Buddha radiating light. He decided to offer his flowers to the Buddha instead of the king. Sumana threw his flowers towards the Buddha. The flowers formed a canopy and walls around the Buddha. They followed him as he moved. Thousands came out to see the Buddha. The king was pleased and offered alms food to the Buddha. He rewarded Sumana with riches and servants. The Buddha blessed Sumana. He said Sumana would not be born in lower worlds for 100,000 worlds. Sumana would eventually become a Paveyyaka Buddha. Once in the Jetavana Monastery, the Buddha shared a story about Theri Uppalavanna. Uppalavanna was a young daughter of a rich man in Savatthi. Her beauty was tender and sweet like a blue lotus flower. Many suitors sought her hand, but she chose a different path. Uppalavanna decided to become a bhikkhuni, a female member of the Buddhist order. She meditated on a flame and achieved Magga insight. Eventually, she attained arahatship and moved to live in solitude in the dark forest. One day, her uncle's son, Nanda, hid in her monastery. He had fallen in love with her before she became a bhikkhuni. Despite her warnings, he assaulted her. As he left, the earth swallowed him up. The Buddha then taught, as long as the evil deed does not bear fruit, the fool thinks it is sweet like honey. But when his evil deed does bear fruit, the fool suffers for it. The story of Thera Jambuka is a tale of transformation. Jambuka was the son of a rich man in Savatthi. Due to past evil deeds, he had peculiar habits. He slept on the floor and ate his own excreta. His parents sent him to ascetics, but they drove him away. Jambuka claimed to live on air and stood on one leg. He deceived people into believing he was an ascetic. For 55 years, he lived naked and ate excreta. One day, the Buddha saw Jambuka was ready to attain arahatship. The Buddha visited Jambuka and stayed nearby. Devas came to pay homage to the Buddha, lighting up the forest. Jambuka was impressed and approached the Buddha. The Buddha revealed Jambuka's deception and past evil deeds. Horrified, Jambuka repented and attained arahatship. He joined the Buddhist order and became a true disciple of the Buddha. The Buddha once shared a profound story at the Jetavana Monastery. Chief disciple Mahamoggallana was on an alms round with Thera Lakkhana. He saw a peta ghost with a human head and snake body. He smiled but said nothing. Later he explained what he saw to Thera Lakkhana. The Buddha revealed he had seen the same ghost on the day he attained Buddhahood. Long ago, a Paveyyaka Buddha was respected by many. People crossed a field to visit him. The field's owner, fearing damage, set it on fire. The Paveyyaka Buddha moved away. His angry disciples beat and killed the landowner. The landowner was reborn in Avicii Niraya. Now he serves the remaining term of his karma as a peta ghost. The Buddha concluded, an evil deed does not bear fruit immediately. It follows the evildoer, burning him like live coal covered with ashes. The Buddha once shared a story at the Veluvana Monastery. It was about a peta ghost named Satthikutapeta. Chief disciple Mahamoggallana saw this enormous peta ghost. He was with Thera Lakkhana on an alms round. The Buddha explained Satthikutapeta's past life. Satthikutapeta was skilled in throwing stones. He asked his teacher to test his skill. The teacher warned him not to hit cows or humans. He suggested finding an ownerless target. Satthikutapeta saw a Paveyyaka Buddha on an alms round. He thought the Paveyyaka Buddha was an ideal target. He threw a stone that killed the Paveyyaka Buddha. The Paveyyaka Buddha's disciples killed Satthikutapeta. He was reborn in Avicii Niraya. Later, he became a peta ghost. His head was hit with red-hot hammers as punishment. Satthikutapeta served the remaining term of his evil deed. His skill had brought him immense suffering. The Buddha concluded, to a fool, his skill or knowledge is of no use. It can only harm him. This is the story of Citta the householder and Thera Sudama. Citta met Thera Mahanama, one of the first 5 bhikkhus. He invited Mahanama to his house and offered alms food. After listening to Mahanama's discourse, Citta attained Sotapadhi fruition. Citta later built a monastery in his mango grove. He looked after all bhikkhus who came there. Bhikkhu Sudama was installed as the resident bhikkhu. The chief disciples, Sariputta and Mahamoggallana, visited the monastery. After Sariputta's discourse, Citta attained anagami fruition. Citta invited them and Sutama for alms food the next day. Sutama refused the invitation in anger. He envied the chief disciples and abused Citta. He left the house and reported to the Buddha. The Buddha advised Sutama to apologize. Sutama did so, but Citta was not appeased. The Buddha then taught about humility and non-attachment. Sutama returned to Citta and they reconciled. Soon after, Sutama attained arahatship. The story of Samanera Tissa begins at the Jetavana Monastery. Tissa was the son of a wealthy man from Savatthi. As a child, he often met the chief disciple Sariputta. At 7, he became a novice under Sariputta. Tissa found frequent visits from friends and relatives tiresome. He sought meditation guidance from the Buddha and moved to a forest monastery. In the forest, Tissa practiced meditation diligently. After 3 months, he attained arahatship. Venerable Sariputta visited Tissa with other disciples. Villagers requested a discourse, and Sariputta insisted Tissa deliver it. Tissa explained the Dhamma eloquently, impressing everyone. The Buddha saw the villagers' mixed feelings and visited them. He praised Tissa, making the villagers realize their fortune. Many attained Sotapadhi fruition after the Buddha's discourse.